join us today. My name is Rachel Davidson. I am a 2019 graduate of the program, and I also have the privilege of serving as the current board president. Outside of Leadership Northwest, I work for Carroll County Memorial Hospital in Carrollton, Missouri. And before you get to spend some really inspirational time with Dr. Tim, I'd like to give you just a little bit about our program for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Leadership Northwest Missouri serves a 19 county region, and it celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. And our mission is to build, strengthen, and inspire leaders through training and networking experiences. And really, our ultimate goal is to see dynamic leaders and thriving communities throughout Northwest Missouri and beyond. So far, the program has had over 400 participants, and we're really hoping to see many, many more. At the end of today's program, I'm going to share a little bit of information about how you can participate and help the program. Now, I would like to pass this off to Deb Powers. She's also a fellow graduate of the program, and she is our indispensable executive director.
Thank you, Rachel. That is so kind. And I just want to say good morning to everyone. Unless you're on the East Coast, I think you're already into your afternoon. So it is such a pleasure to see all of your faces this morning. And really, thank you so much for joining us. How about we get started with our day? It is my sincere pleasure to introduce Dr. Tim Crowley. He is a nationally recognized motivational speaker, leadership, and resilience expert with more than 30 years experience in helping people to thrive at work and succeed in life. Leadership Northwest Missouri has been fortunate to have Tim at the helm of our training since the very first year, back in '01, right, Steve Snook? Back in 2001 is when we started this program. So at this time, it is my honor to introduce to you Dr. Tim Crowley.
Hey. Thanks, Deb. And before I start, just let's give a shout out to both Rachel and Deb for getting us started. Thank you. Excited to see everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day. This is going to be fast and fun and very interactive. And I'm going to just jump right into things. We're going to cannonball into this experience. I want to begin by actually just doing an activity that I've done with many of you, but take your right hand and hold it up in the air. This is your birth date. This is the day that you were born. Now stretch it out as far as you can to the right, like so. Now take your left hand, and this is the day that you're going to kick the bucket, sell the farm, that you leave this life and go to the next life, and stretch it out this way. So what you have is your lifeline in front of you. And what I want you to do is to go ahead and take off all the years that you've lived. And I'm 62. I can't believe that. So I just took off 62 years of my life. By the way, isn't this inspiring already? Just kidding. Now take off another third, because most of us are going to work it. And if you're under 30 or 35, take off even a little bit more. And now take off another third, because pray God, with everything we got to do, we're going to get some sleep. And what you have in front of you, my friends, ladies and gents, this is your life. This is like all you got. And hopefully one of the lessons we learned from COVID is life doesn't always go the way we want, and we just never know what tomorrow will bring. Here's my question for you. How many of you at the end of your life, the end of your career, you want to be able to look back and reflect and say, wow, what a sweet ride. What an amazing ride. What a great opportunity. What a just epic adventure. We all want that, right? Here's my question to you to set the format for today, to set the tone for the day. What does self-leadership, bringing our best to everything we do, have to do with making this a really, really sweet ride, a great life, an epic life, a meaningful life? And of course, I'm looking for a one-word answer. That word begins with the letter E, and that word is everything. So today we're going to dive into how we can lead ourselves first before leading other people. And in order to lead others, we have to put on our own oxygen mask first. So I'm going to begin just to share some thoughts with you, and we will make this very interactive, and you're going to have time to meet other people today and share your thoughts in a variety of different ways. So I want to slow down and just begin to reflect back onto COVID. And, you know, a year ago, March, we began a journey that many of us never saw, never realized it would still be going on. It is great to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but wow, what a year. And so I don't know about you, but as I listen to people, most people are saying, oh my gosh, I want to put that year behind me. I want to put it in the rear view window. And I'm going to say, before we put 2020 behind us, let's make it not a year to forget, but let's make sure that it's a year that we remember, because that's what leaders do. We pull lessons out of the tough stuff. So make it a year that we remember. And what if we could pull out the idea that little things are the big things? I don't know about you, but right now, seeing people without masks and seeing smiles is so nice. I can't wait to be in a room and with a group of people where we're all mask free. So I come from an average sized Catholic family. I have like 12 siblings. Um, I just miss hugging the people that I love and shaking hands. Like, when is the last time you shook someone's hand? So oftentimes the little things are the big things. Um, I hope out of COVID that we all have realized this, that even in the darkest of times and the toughest of times, and as we've looked on the national news and in our own lives, you know, many people lost family members, lost jobs, lost their homes. There's been so much grief and so much struggling. So certainly hope that we'll remember that no matter how bad we have it, people probably have it worse. Um, how are you handling the beginning of post-COVID? What lessons will you take from it? What will you do different? Years ago, when I was in high school, I grew up in Northwest Iowa, and we all know that in Missouri too, spring has happened, and most farmers have most of their crops planted, most of their seeds in the ground. But I can remember being in church, and our minister asked us um, about farmers putting seeds into the ground. He says, "Do farmers bury the seeds or do they plant the seeds?" And I thought, well, they kind of do both, don't they? And then I thought about it for another moment. And then he shared with us, says, don't ever let life circumstances bury you. I have no doubt that many of us can feel buried by the last year that we've just been through. And he says, make sure that when tough things happen, when struggles happen, that you're actually able to plant and that you plant seeds. So here's my question for you as we go into today. In the remaining part of 2021, where is it that you want to grow? What is it that you want to plant? What do you want to put your energies into? What will you put your time and your energies into? And what will you cultivate? And what goodness will you bring into your life and into the lives of others? So with that, I'm going to introduce a colleague of mine in the psychology field by name. His name's Dr. Marty Seligman, and he really changed the way that as psychologists that we do our work. So 75 years after World War I, here's mental health, by the way, on a continuum. Here's people surviving every day. Here's people just being okay. And on this end of the continuum, it's people thriving. For 75 years after World War I, all we did was put our energy just to get people from surviving just to this place of zero or normal, or just to be okay. But with his work, we've changed the way that, as most of us as therapists do work, we put so much time into helping people to thrive. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with people, we focus on what's right with people and what's strong with people. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take, he has 5 pillars for this really cool program called PERMA. And he says, when you do these 5 things and you make them part of your life, you will go from surviving to thriving. So here's my question for you. How many of you want to really thrive in 2021? And let's see that handshake if you really want to really thrive. So I'm going to give you his recipe, and then I'm going to just encourage you to live that recipe and to share it with others and to really model this recipe to as many people as you can. So the first piece that he talks about is positive emotions. By the way, like, who likes a cranky leader? Who likes a grumpy leader? Who likes a stinky leader? None of us do. Who likes negative leaders? None of us do. And yet, if we're not careful, we can become that man or that woman ourselves. What kind of impact do you have on others with your emotions? Are your emotions positive? Are they negative? And before I get into the positive side, I do want to say something about emotions that oftentimes get thrown as negative. I don't think they are. I think some emotions get a bad rap. There is nothing wrong with being depressed. There is nothing wrong with being anxious. By the way, if where you are right now, as we begin to come out of COVID, if in the last year you haven't felt some depression, some anxiety, you are not normal. Listen to this. It is okay not to be okay. We should get rid of all that negative stigma around not being okay. We just don't want you to get stuck there. We don't want you to get stuck in depression. We don't want you to get stuck in anxiety. But like sad, like I had a sister that passed away during COVID. I'm sad about that. And grief takes a long time. And by the way, grief is the price that you pay for loving well. So if I'm going to encourage you to let yourself feel sadness, feel anxious, feel depressed, and that's how we get through it. To deny depression, deny anxiety, deny sadness, we just get stuck in it. So if you want to move through it, lean into it. In some weird way, we have to embrace our sadness. So like the more that I grieve my sister, the more I find myself working through that. So know that you're normal if you have any of that going on. If you don't have some of that going on, I'm curious about you. So when we think of positive emotions, there's all sorts of positive emotions. There's hope, there's joy, there's I almost gave away the greatest powerful one that I can think of. I want to hold that for a while. There's love, there's compassion, there's empathy, there's curiosity. When you think of positive emotions, what positive emotions do you have? Reflect on that for a moment. How do you show up in the world? Do you show up in the world with your cup half full or half empty? Just think about that for a moment. There's no reason that we can't have our cups 2/3 full so the joy spills over even a lot easier. There is a superpower when it comes to positive emotions. There's one emotion that's been studied now for, well, almost 20 years. And this really is the superpower of all emotions. You cannot feel this and be depressed. You cannot feel this and be anxious. You cannot feel this and not want to get out of bed. Anybody have an idea of what that emotion is? Begins with the letter G. We usually celebrate it at Thanksgiving holiday. And we, of course, we all know that emotion is gratitude. So in a few moments, we're going to actually just, instead of talk about it, we're going to have a live experience on gratitude. We're going to go into breakout room. So let me slow down a little bit here and just give you the instructions of what we're going to do. So in a few moments, when I say go, Deb will put us in breakout rooms. You're going to be there with 2 or 3 other people. You're going to have a total of 6 minutes. So the person that their first name is closest to the letter A, you're going to be the person speaking first. So in a moment, you're going to be in a breakout room. And when you're in that breakout room, whoever name is closest to the letter A is going to go first. This is what you're going to do. And I want you to bring your very best to this. When you get in the room and you go first, you're going to say, you're going to begin to just share what you're grateful for. Excuse me. You're going to talk about probably your health and family and a job. And then usually most people feel like they're done. That's actually when you are really getting started. You can't quit sharing the good stuff, the good news, the good in you, the good in others, the good in the world until 2 minutes have passed. It's going to be real important that when you're in the breakout rooms that you guys monitor the time to make sure everybody gets a turn to speak. So once that person speaks for 2 minutes, then you're going to go to the second person, and they're going to be the person that's second closest to the letter A. And then at 6 minutes, at the end of 6 minutes, Deb's going to bring us back, and we're going to talk about what it was like to get a gratitude rush. So Deb, when you're ready, we're going to all have this gratitude exchange. Let's go into breakout. Just kind of keep soaking in, and one of my favorite words, those of you who know me, it's called savor. Just enjoy that conversation you have, and think about, Americans, 75% of our daily conversations are negative. What was it like to actually slow down and listen to somebody sharing the good news in the world and the good news in their life, and to be able to do that ourselves? So I want to process a little bit about gratitude. So Dr. Robert Emmons has been studying this from the University of Berkeley Davis, and like in cognitive therapy, you can't be ungrateful and grateful at the same time. You can't be emotionally in those two places at the same time. And I don't care who we are, if we slow down and we live more in the present, I think we all can find something to be thankful for. for those of you, some of us came back a little bit earlier, and we're even talking just about the silver lining and COVID, and like for parents and family members to spend more time together than they typically have. So I wrestled in college many years ago, before many of you were probably born, graduated in 81. I haven't hung out with those guys like forever. And one of the highlights of my COVID is in regards to relationships. I got connected with my old wrestling buddies, and it's been a lot of years, and it felt like it was only 5 minutes since we've been together. I'm grateful for those people. And today they would still do anything for me, and I would do anything for them. I want to talk a little bit more about gratitude before we go on today. So if you want to strengthen gratitude, it's like any muscle. You have to exercise it. You have to practice it. So Dr. Robert Emmons recommends these two exercises. One, he says, the first one is to do it in the morning upon awakening, before your foot hits the bedroom floor. But upon awakening, do what you just did in that breakout room with that person, intentionally, mindfully look at what's good in you and good in the life, and give some homage to that, give some credence to that, pay attention to what's good and reflect on that. You do that for 5, 6, 7 days. By time you and you keep that in your routine, as you look at your face in the bathroom mirror about day 7, you're actually going to be smiling back at that person. You're going to like what you're seeing. The people in your house, the pets in your house, they're going to notice a shift in you. When you drive to work, instead of being the person that's doing this to people, you'll probably be doing this to people. You'll be able to walk into the workplace literally lifting people up and uplifting others. So gratitude is contagious. I think it's one of the best superpowers of the emotions that we have. Like, I have no doubt all of you were able to give thanks to something. Let's make sure that's just not one time a year. We also know that a lot of us don't sleep much these days. He says if you're getting less than 6 hours, you'll never live up to your optimal self, and really recommends, we want to get about 7, 8 hours to really flourish in life. Oftentimes we have a hard time shutting this off, shutting that brain down, shutting that ticker off. And so here's his exercise for that. It's what he calls 3 good things, 3 blessings. A couple hours before you go to bed at night, take this laptop that you're on right now, take this cell phone, shut this off, get away from electronics, turn off the TV, and connect with yourself, connect with the people in your home, and begin asking reflecting questions like, share 3 good things that happened to you today and what made them happen. Here's what people do that really cultivate a sense of gratitude. They're good at these 2 things. They're good at looking for the good in others and the good in life and the good in situations. How well do you do that? How well, upon meeting people or the people you know, how well are you at looking at what's good in others? And the second thing is, when we really develop that sense of gratitude, so much of what we're grateful, it comes from outside of us. It's about other people. It's about the contributions that other people are making to our life. Unfortunately, we're not all that good at letting people know that we appreciate that. So when you're aware of those people, boy, make sure that you're expressing that appreciation. Um, I think another superpower, which we're just going to talk for a minute on, is humor. By the way, like, man, you got to laugh. If you're not laughing during the tough times, lots of luck getting through the tough times. So Dr. William Fried from Stanford's been studying humor and the effects of it well over actually about 65, 70 years now. And we have tons of research, but it's the common sense stuff that we all know. How many of you have had embarrassing moments? When you share those embarrassing moments, when you can laugh at yourself and realize you're not the center of the universe, usually life gets better, life is easier, life is fun. Another thing to do is just to share those funny stories that pop up in your life with friends and family. And I still have stories. My son's 30, soon to be 34. I'm still sharing stories about him when he was 3, and I can laugh as hard now as I could like 30 years ago. So, really, strengthen your humor will really strengthen that attitude, will help you to have much more of a positive attitude. Grandma Raints was a person that was just really serious growing up. And then we're sitting at the Christmas table one day, and she revealed something very private about herself. This is a woman who never, ever talked about herself. And she shared the story of having these really painful case of hemorrhoids. And she said, so I knew I'm an independent woman. I live by myself. I was going to take care of it. So she walks to the bathroom, puts on the preparation H, only discovered she put icy hot on her hemorrhoids. And she told us that at Christmas, and we just all started laughing so hard. We were like crying. And she said, "Stop it, you guys." She said, "I loved it." She said, "I haven't moved that fast since I was 16. So with that, number one, here's the PERMA model that we're going to go through today. Positive emotions, they're available for all of us. And gratitude is one of the strongest ones. Make it a practice to show up more positive. There's nothing wrong with being sad, depressed, or anxious. Just don't get stuck in there. The next thing that we're going to talk about is engagement right here. So when he talks about engagement, he's really talking about this concept called flow. Raise your hand if you can think of certain activities that you get into and time just goes by. Like you could spend hours in it and it feels like it was 5 or 10 minutes. So put your hand up, go to that reaction if you know what that, if you've experienced that, of just getting in that thing called flow. So for me, I can do that biking, I can do that and having great conversations with certain people. Michael Jordan would end up in flow when he was playing basketball, and everything was just so effortlessly. So when's the last time you've been in flow? How well do you seek out activities that help you to be in that space called flow? In order to be in flow, we have to be able to do this. We have to be in the present moment. Who does that anymore? Most of us live in the past, or we're worried about the future, and we miss what's right here, right now. We all know that saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift, and that's why we call it the present. So when you can really live in the present, your presence becomes a present and a gift to others, and it becomes a gift for yourself. By the way, if you have a career in which you can enter into flow, it's probably not a job, it's probably not a career, it's probably a calling. I'm curious, how many of you feel like in some way, some percentage of your work is actually a calling where you can be in that flow and time just goes by really quick? I'm curious, go ahead and put your hands up for that and let's just see what happens. So these projects, which are demanding and yet they're really satisfying, and it's really letting you know that you're probably doing the work you were meant to do on this planet, is when you can be in that level of engagement. Here's 3 ways that'll help you to get into flow. You know what stops us more than anything, and I know you know this. This is the thing that stops most of us from ever entering into flow. Our mind just goes like 90 miles an hour. It's like trying to get a drink out of a fire hose. You know, this is how we go through life all the time. That's not how you get into flow. That's not a way to really to be engaged. So let me share these 3 C's. And if you have something to write them down, you might write this down. You'll have it in a handout, but if you write it down, you're more likely to remember this. This is some of the most common sense information I could ever give anyone. Boy, if you can live these 3 C's, your happiness is going to go up tenfold. So the first C, number 1, is control what you can. By the way, you know, most of the stuff in our life is out of our control. Think how many times you take things personally, or we make false assumptions, or we get so upset about stuff that we can't control at all. I'm looking at my screen and I know many of you, and I know your stories and family stories, and think how much we can get over involved even in our families' lives. And gosh, if we could control it, we would. So there's some of this stuff, somehow we have to begin to surrender to the stuff that we can't control. And it takes trust to do that. It takes faith to do that. That's tough stuff. But boy, if we can learn to control what we can. By the way, I can control what I say. I can control how I treat other people. I can sometimes control what I think, but that's probably about it at the end of the day. The second one is to do this. So first one, control what you can. Second one is cope with what you can't. Cope with what you can't. By the way, we are all stronger than what we know. We can cope amazingly well. if the worst thing to do is to just go into meltdowns. Think of people how they get so upset so easy. We are stronger. We have this thing. Human beings have this ability to build inner resilience and strength and grit. And we're going to talk about some of those, but begin to cope with what you can. And that requires you to take better care of yourself. Most of us, and I know so many of you, most of you are like me. We give everybody and everything the best of ourselves, and then we don't leave much for ourselves. I'm going to recommend that you change that one, turn that one around. Here's the third C. Concentrate on what is most important to you. Put your energies into that. So when you control what you can, cope with what you can't, and you concentrate on what's in your control and what's most important to you, guess what happens to the quality of your life? Guess what happens to your joy? Guess what happens to your happiness? Guess what happens to your energy? Guess what happens to your ability to impact and influence and contribute to life? So all that stuff goes up. And I don't care how long we live, life is always short. So do those three things, and it's going to help you to be more present with yourself, more present with others. So that's the third one. The fourth one is this. By the way, every one of these we could do a full day workshop on. So the third pillar is relationships. So you guys know these things I'm going to share, and I'm not really even here to teach you, but I'm here more to remind you and give you a shot in the arm. People need people. You can't do life alone. We can't do life alone. And yet often what happens, the people closest to us, because we're not taking good care of ourselves, do they get the best of us or they get the worst of us? Oftentimes they get the worst of us. And so many of us in here, we're involved with leadership. Matter of fact, I think we're all leaders. Why would we go off to work and give people that we work with and customers and people that we interact with on a daily basis the best of us, and then come home and give our family the worst of us? That's probably a broken model. None of us become who we are without the relationships of others, without the contributions of others. Let's just pause for a moment and think of maybe 1, 2, 3 people that have contributed to who you are as a person. They made a donation to you by being a mentor, a role model, a teacher. They've taught you valuable life lessons. And when you can think of that person or him or her or those persons, just go ahead and put your hand up again. Actually go ahead in the reactions and put that on your name there like Tammy just did. So we're just going to slow down and just soak up some thoughts about relationships. So let me give you one big relationship question. So there's a ratio of negative to positive. Those people that have the strongest marital relationships, friend relationship, coworker relationships, there's a ratio between negative and positive. And the people, according to Gottman, John Gottman's a marital researcher, and really he's about 95% accurate. He, like if you do premarital counseling, he'll tell you if you're going to be together in 2, 5, 10, 15 years. The guy's really pretty accurate. This next piece of information that I'm going to share with you about relationships, it's the ratio of positive to negative, it's the other way around, negative to positive comments. What would you guess the ratio is for the best of couples, the best of relationships, the best of coworkers, the best of colleagues, the best of people on committees? When I share it with you, it sounds realistic, but rarely do people get there. It's to every one negative, how many positives? 5. For every one negative interaction, one negative comment, there's 5 positive. Here's what I want you to think about, because this is what you can control. You can't control what other people do in relationships. How are you with the relationships in your life? Are you the person that's more likely to have 1 positive? Are you giving people 4 or 5? How well do you treat the important people in your life? How well do you just slow down and take the time and express that appreciation to those people in your life? You know, we used to take pen and paper and we would write notes, or even on sticky notes to kids. And those things meant so much. And rarely do we even do those things anymore. Relationships don't happen in a bubble. They don't develop on their own. We all know this. Matter of fact, Deb, can you go to that Mentimeter question? What do you do to lift others up? Why don't you go ahead and put that up? So Deb's going to give us a question, and we're just going to see all the different ways that we can contribute to the lives of others. We can give to the lives of others. We can lift others up. We can support others.
So you'll want to get your Mentimeter ready on your phone. And I put the code in the chat box.
So as you're thinking, it's simple things, but profound is I listen to people. I give people positive oh, I love it. Compliment, smiles, compliment them, listen, hug. Oh my gosh, hugs. Soon, soon, soon. Gifts and gifts that fit. Hey, Deb, is there a way to send everybody these responses to, or is that possible or not? These are great ideas. They're great actions. How about that one? Somebody said wave. Like, when I grew up, everybody like waved, and now they do this all the time. Let's do this. Fist bump. Highlight their achievements. I love it. It's great to make heroes out of people. Give positive feedback, make them laugh, share a laugh. Oh, I don't know who wrote that, but I love that saying, everything's going to be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Boy, isn't that perspective? And always say thank you, express my gratitude. Oh, of course, smiles, hugs, gifts, and I'm going to put Girl Scout cookies in front of cookies. Speak life and positive words to them. You know, the positive words that you give out each and every day, they may be the only positive words that a child, a coworker, a friend might hear in a day, a week, or a month. I've never heard anybody say, oh, quit giving me so much love, quit being kind, quit being good to me, quit waving, quit smiling, quit hugging. Be genuine, meaningful, positive notes. By the way, most people don't leave jobs because of the work. They usually leave because of bosses that never appreciate them or express gratitude. So let people know that they're doing well. How about that? Love others as you want to be loved. So when you go back to work tomorrow and next week, take these ideas and just make them part of how you show up in life. And that's how you create a legacy. That's how you create a difference. That's how you create an impact. So many of us have been through workshops together, and we know this. We never know what's going on in people's lives. Even today, when we're seeing everybody's faces, we have no idea about the losses, the struggle, the challenges that people are facing. And all these ideas are powerful, but they become even more powerful when we take these action or take these thoughts and turn them into action. So positive emotions aren't something you have to wait for. They're something that you create, and you can be the catalyst for them. You can be the ripple. I think we're all ripple makers, and we get to decide what kind of ripples we send out into the world and the workplace. Do we send out negativity or we send out positivity? Look at all these great ideas that you guys have came up with. Hey Deb, while we're in Mentimeter, I overlooked something, and on True Colors, that's what orange do sometimes. Can we go back to and the engagement and put that question up? If you hear, yeah, okay, thanks. And then once you do, I'll speak about that. So Deb's going to give you guys another question that we had a Mentimeter prep for, and I skipped right over it, but we're going to slow down and go back and capture it. I want to see how creative this group is and what comes out of it. So this is dealing with the engagement one, but what activities do you get completely absorbed in and lose track of time? Let's just see the variety of things. So emails, Netflix, reading. I love it. People still read. Working outside, that's me. Lifting weights, Netflix, podcasts, guitar, playing sports with my kids, throwing pots. Look at all the talent and variety in this group. Outreach with church, reading, fly fishing. Is that reading while fly fishing? I'm kidding. Riding my bike, anything with my kids. Isn't that beautiful? Hiking, painting, traveling. So you get when we're in flow, like our heart rate becomes really stable. Flow, another word, is like bliss. Making cards, gardening, reading, TikTok. TikTok again. Hey, serving, music, yard working, biking, hot tub time. Sitting by the bonfire. By the way, what's shared at the bonfire stays at the bonfire. So you guys all know there's something about thinking about doing these things, but the real benefit comes from when we really do these things, when we visit the friend, pray, walk, play with grandkids, baking, being outside with nature. Word puzzles. So let's just kind of pause here for a moment. So when you're done today, what Deb and I, the alumni, Rachel, current class members, we all want you to just to be more aware of your positive emotions, your level of engagement, and how well you are at cultivating and strengthening and keeping your relationships alive. We want you to apply all your magic and energy just to making these things happen. The more that you can work on these things, the more that you will feel alive. And I have no doubt your impact and influence goes up. So we're going to switch now to, actually, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. And it's this one. It's called meaning. Like, by the way, if you don't have this in your life, like, why are you even getting up in the morning? Why are you even getting out of bed? So Simon Sinek, who's a contemporary leadership guru, has written a book that says Start with Why. And he talks about the difference between good leaders and great leaders. So he says all good leaders know what to do and how to do it. And very few know why they do it. But this is what great leaders do. Great leaders know why they do what they do, and they never let go of their why. So, this is how you know if you have a job, a career, or a calling. If you're really connected to the bigger picture of what you're doing, the why behind your work. So I'm looking at my screen right now and I see Judy, and I know, so Judy's been a nurse for a while. And I know that my relationship of knowing you, you've always been connected to the bigger picture of what a nurse does. And there's so many challenges that I would just see when I worked with you come by, come out of nowhere in a nursing or healthcare person's life. But when you connected to that why, that's what helps you to continue to show up and do the hard work day in and day out, even when you're exhausted. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning. So here's my question to you. In your life right now, what's the bigger meaning? What's your passion? What's your purpose? For some of us, we'll say our kids. Um, it could even be around a social cause. It could be to stop hunger. It could be to love people. But when you look at your own life, which we're all going to leave a legacy, how do you want to be remembered? What do you want to be remembered for? So my mom, gosh, she's been gone almost 20 years now. I think she gave birth to 13 kids and 35 grandkids, and now those grandkids have had babies. But I didn't realize this about my mom until many, many years later. But the meaning that she had in her life, it was about being a mom. And after my youngest sister finally graduated from high school, then my mom at 55 went back and got her GED, and then she went and got an LPN degree, and then she got a nursing degree. But my mom's passion and mission and meaning in her life, it was all about her kids. She got up, could you imagine all the meals she made? And she cooked all the time, 3 meals a day for like 20 some years for 13 children. Never once did she complain. Never once did she whine about it. She was always there just to support us and to love us. And like, yeah, she probably made more meals in a year than I've still made in my lifetime. So it's so important to find the meaning in our life. Viktor Frankl, some of you who know me have heard me talk about him, but he survived the Nazi concentration camp. By the way, he went into this concentration camp with his wife, who was carrying their unborn child. Both his parents went in and his brother. 4.5 years later, Viktor Frankl is the only one of his family that survived the concentration camps. And if you were to Google Viktor Frankl's name today, the photos you will find, they're horrifying. It looks like a skeleton. He doesn't look like a human. He doesn't even look like a man. But he essentially said this: it was the meaning of life that really kept him alive. And it was just knowing that family always mattered. Check out, so he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, here's a powerful quote, which we all could be inspired by. So from Viktor Frankl to all of you, listen to this quote that he has in his book. We all have one last freedom. That means you, me, every one of us, we all have one last freedom. And you know what that freedom is? That freedom is to choose our attitude no matter what the situation. And so think of how this person was beaten and starved and watched tons of friends and family and hundreds of people literally killed in a gas chamber, and he still could find joy in life. So no matter how bad we have it, there is still an opportunity to find meaning and passion and purpose. W. Mitchell is somebody that I've shared stories about with many of you. And many years ago, he had 3 loves in his life. One was motorcycles, one was airplanes, and the third one was his girlfriend. And he just finished a solo flight over San Francisco Bay. Imagine that, flying over that bay and having that unbelievable experience. Landed the plane perfectly on the runway, received all sorts of kudos from his flight instructor. And now he's headed to his girlfriend on his motorcycle just to celebrate that joy of having that flight on that solo flight. And somebody ran into him and his motorcycle exploded, and he was burnt to 2/3 over his body. To this day, he's still alive, but most of his face is still scars. He's doesn't even begin to look like the person that he did. And I'd like to say that was the end of all of his tragedies, but he had such a passion for flying. Even though his fingers got burnt down to nubs, he actually learned to fly. And years later, he's with 3 of his best buddies, and now he's leaving Crested Butte, Colorado. By the way, if you've never been to Crested Butte, Colorado, put it on your places to go. Beautiful mountain town in Colorado. So he's leaving that airport, and they de-iced the plane, but it wasn't de-iced well enough. The airplane crashed on takeoff, and his 3 buddies walked away from that airplane perfectly fine, doing really well. Today, if you were to meet W. Mitchell, not only is he still has those scars all over his body, but he lives in a wheelchair. And this is what he says: life is not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. And for him, his life is about making a difference in the lives of others. So he's one of the most enjoyable motivational speakers I've ever had an opportunity to listen to. You should go check out his website. But he gives you a case of life isn't about what happens to us, it's how we respond to it. And when you're connected to your meaning and you're connected to your purpose and your vision, there's probably almost nothing that can come your way that's really going to be an obstacle or stop you from really living a life of meaning and purpose. So someday we'll all be gone from this planet. We'll all leave a legacy. So much of that is going to be connected to this piece right here. How will you be remembered? What do you want to be remembered for? And Deb, I think we have a question for that one as well. Why don't we go ahead and put that Mentimeter question up if we can. And so we're going to just learn a little about the group and the people that are here. So what larger purpose or cause are you drawn to and connected to? Family, helping people. Yeah, we can help people every day. And you guys already gave some great ideas. My kids, making the world a better place, helping people succeed, treating people as they want to be treated, community, helping others. What are some specific things that you may, I'm curious if people are connected to maybe feeding people, like stopping hunger, their social justice, increasing knowledge, being kind. Anybody help with homelessness, unity and diversity, helping staff to be their best, spreading the gospel. By the way, spreading the gospel, the best way to do that is, I think we're all missionaries, is by just the way we treat people. So we know the golden rule, treat people as they want to be treated. But how many of us really do that day in and day out? Being useful no matter where I am, useful in a way that makes someone smile or feel good. Helping the underdog. By the way, nobody wants to be the underdog. And when people show up and treat us as we're just like everybody else, that is life-changing. That changes the direction of someone's life. So I was growing up in a poor family, 11 or 13 kids. I don't know if I used the word underdog, but certainly felt different. But it was my 5th grade teacher who just like loved on me. And she changed the whole direction of my life, changed the trajectory of my life, just as all of us can and you do. Especially when we're connected to this meaning. If you don't have meaning, you know how hard it is to get out of bed in the morning? So there's a guy by the name of Daniel Buettner, as I continue to look at your responses. He's written a book called The Blue Zone. And what Daniel Buettner did, he studied people that lived to be into the triple digits. And he found that the greatest number of those people on the planet lived in Okinawa, Japan. And he would ask people, so what do you attribute to living such a long life and such a healthy life and such a great life? And they all kept saying the same word, and the word was ikigai. And ikigai translates to this: the reason I get out of bed in the morning. They were always connected to their meaning and their purpose. And Deb, go ahead and let's, we're going to take that down and we're going to move on to the next word, which is achievement. And I'm going to go through this somewhat fast so we can leave some questions. Time for question and answers. So here's the last part of PERMA is achievement. So achievement is not about winning. It's not about being right. By the way, how many of you know people that would rather die than ever be wrong? They have to be right at all costs. It's not about that. Sometimes you'll see the word accomplishment, but it's about doing something. It's about having goals. It's about making good things happen in your lives and in the lives of others. We know this. People that are connected to achieving, they make things happen. They get things done. So there's a book called Grit, and this is what we know about students. Students with lower IQs, students with average IQs, almost, if they have grit, they almost always outperform students with really high IQs because they have one thing, and it goes along with achievement. And the one thing that they have is effort. They'll do whatever it takes to not just get the job done, but to do it really, really well. So here's the definition of grit, which really helps us to achieve. The definition of grit is passion plus perseverance. So it's not just starting something, even a career. It's not just starting a career, starting a job, but it's starting it, staying the course, and finishing strong. How much passion and perseverance do you show up with on a day in and day out? And it's that passion and perseverance that helps us to really get that thing called grit, where there's just like no quit. By the way, why don't you do this in the reaction? Put your hand if you know people that just really, they could be the pictured child, man or woman for grit. They just don't quit. And we all want those people in our communities. And I hope as you're doing that, that this would also be many of you, that it's the people that show up continuously, just contributing to the lives of others, impacting the lives of others, influencing the lives of others. And oftentimes they're achieving, but they're doing it in humble ways. They're not looking for anything, but they just enjoy doing it to contribute to the lives of others. And I'm looking at so many of your faces, and that fits so many of you. Matter of fact, I'm looking at Jill Clare, who's always treated every class as such a great experience with a name game where she finds a food for their name. And those that aren't part of that program won't know, but thanks, Jill. Many of you have heard me talk about this person. Her name's Edith Brown, and she was a person with grit and with achievement. She was a secretary at the Counseling Center at Missouri Western. Unfortunately, she got cancer, and yet Edith Brown was coming to work. Imagine this woman's dying. She's coming to work, and she's the happiest woman in the workplace, the happiest person in the workplace. After Edith passed, I went to her funeral an hour and a half early, and I couldn't even get into the church. It was standing room only. People loved that woman, and they loved her because I think she was a little bit of all of these things right here. She really was so much of all of these, but she had one thing down, one life lesson that most of us don't always get figured out in our life. And she figured out the main secret of life, which is opposite of what we're taught from the time we're born and raised in elementary and high school and even go off to college. One of the main secrets of life, it's not about getting, when we're young, we're thinking about getting careers, and careers that are going to be rewarding. And oftentimes it's driven by money more than by meaning and purpose. She figured out the secret of life is about giving. So no wonder I couldn't get into the church an hour and a half early. And I've shared this with many of you. They left a scholarship in her name, and this was the secretary, but she never met a stranger. She was always about lifting people up. She was always present. She was always engaged. And to this date, there's been over $6 million left in this secretary's name. And this is what happens when you live by PERMA. Edith Brown would have been a person who really would have, I would say, is a poster person for all 5 of these pieces of PERMA. She showed up, she was mindful, always lifting people up. And I'm going to guess there's an Edith Brown in each and every one of us. It's important as we begin to find our way out of COVID, not to get lost in COVID, not to get stuck in the wake of that past year, but to look forward to this new year with ways that we can impact our lives and the lives of others, the ways that we can lift other people up. I'm going to take a look at my notes here for a second to make sure I'm on the same page as Deb. Let's do that, Deb. Let's go ahead and pull the achievement slide up for Mentimeter. So we're going to set a goal for you guys for this year. So let me explain it a little bit. So what's something that you're striving for this year? What's something that you want to bring into your life this year? What's something that you want for yourself this year? What's something that you're going to use to focus on this year? Oh my gosh. Gentleness. I love it. Education, gratitude, renovate. I thought it said bald, but I read it. It's really balance. Okay. Gratitude. Oh, that's nice. Wisdom, perseverance, engagement. Gratitude, self-care, teamwork, presence. Self-care. 10 years ago, you'd never see that on this list. Balance, action, family, health. Isn't health interesting? We take it for granted, and once we lose it, we spend our whole life trying to get it back. Blessings, outlast, faith, epic. Look at gratitude, boom, kindness, connections. Hey, Deb, I'm going to ask you just to leave that there for all of us to look at. And now I'm going to get rid of all these notes, which I don't even like. And I so miss being in person. Doing this virtual is a challenge for me. But I just want to open up the chat to some questions. And then if maybe Rachel or Deb could read any of the questions. So any questions that anyone has just about like how to create more of a better life for yourself, how to create that epic life, any questions, challenges, or if there's a comment that you want to make in chat for us just to, for you to share with everyone. If you have a piece of advice yourself that you just want to give, we're just going to take about the last 10 minutes or so and have questions or answers or any comments that you have. So we really are in this thing called life together. You know, Helen Keller has that great quote, says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much.
Janice from St. Joseph says that she definitely misses you and wonders if you've ever thought about doing a podcast.
Oh, so.
And there's a lot of support for that behind that comment.
Wow. So sometimes I get nudged, sometimes I get clobbered, and most of the time I shrink and say no, but one day I may say yes. I'm like the rest of you guys, just make up excuses why not to do that. But how many of you ever done this? Have you ever said yes where you really should say no? So there's some things in my work life recently I've said yes to. Oh my gosh, huge mistake. And so it's really important to say no to what doesn't work. So podcast would work way better than for those things than some of the things I've said yes to. So thanks for that nudge.
We also have another question from Community Hospital Fairfax. It's just in a time when the healthcare workforce is fatigued, how do we help them recover?
Yeah, by the way, what a great question. In that group, probably more than any of it, than any other group. I can't think of a group of people that have been more flooded. and so you guys know this, but to know it in our head and our heart is one thing, to live it's another. So to express empathy and to express compassion and to express understanding and to, um, like teachers and healthcare people, rarely do we ever even express the gratitude. So many of those folks, especially in healthcare, have put them literally not only their lives online, they put their family's life online, their loved ones' life online, especially early in COVID, not knowing what was going to happen. Every day they came to work, they were um, putting themselves at risk, their loved ones at risk. So, um, and yet they have to fight so many people. What if we could be kinder, more loving, more supportive, lift them up? Um, I think to listen, let them debrief. Oftentimes it's hard for people to talk about some of this stuff, but just without saying names, of course, they're going to be confidential, but you don't experience that type of, I'll say, could be almost trauma and tragedy. You got to debrief it. We have to help people express it, and to let go that to keep that in is not good. And then to celebrate them and to celebrate each other and to celebrate each hard work and make sure that we're every day celebrating our wins and make sure that we're expressing those wins.
Judy added to that conversation of just how hard it is to move forward sometimes with this uncertainty that still exists, especially on how to handle this next phase of the pandemic.
Yeah. You know, kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. So that's that part of just saying it's okay not to be okay, and actually to verbalize that, like saying I'm having a hard time, this is a struggle, this is challenging. And so oftentimes we think we always have to be positive, almost like Pollyanna, or that we're Superman or Superwoman, and that's the worst thing we can do. But so maybe speak with more authenticity about the struggle, about the challenge. And boy, when people are brave enough to be that vulnerable with us, boy, we need to meet them with support. And we all know this, but rarely do we do it. We have to really listen. And what that means is we don't talk. And if we do talk, we just encourage the other person to continue to share more and to share more. And to make sure that they're heard and seen and validated and lifted up, and help them process the tough stuff and the challenges and the struggles. We don't heal from that by ourselves. People need people. By the way, if we give healthcare workers that kind of response, they're still going to struggle, but not near as much. We create an unnecessary burden by not providing them the support that they need.
There's some great support out here on the chat, just talking about how lucky we are to have people like Judy in healthcare. And, so we're already seeing the love happen in the chat group there.
Oh, yeah. By the way, that's how it works, Rachel, right? So if we can respond to people and do what we're doing right here, let's make sure we're doing that day in and day out in our lives. And so, most of us grew up without social media, and social media, it is such a great thing and it's such a terrible thing at the same time. So here's my thoughts with that. Be impeccable with your voice. What that means is if you're ever going to put your word to anything, make sure it's good, make sure it's positive, make sure that it's uplifting. Um, there's a word called Genshai in a book by Kevin Hall, and this is what it means: never treat another person in a manner that would make them feel small. Well, let's go even one step past that. Let's find ways to celebrate people for their dedication, their commitment, for the risk that they take. And so I know Judy, and there's other healthcare people on there. Thank all of you for what you do day in and day out.
Tim, Marcus also made a comment in the chat about, I feel he's saying the importance of daily thinking about those less fortunate.
Let's even expand that, Marcus. And I know, Mark, if you haven't met Marcus, you've missed out, because he is probably one of the most kindest, authentic people I've ever met in my life. But do you know how lucky we are just to be born in America? So I was in Denver a few weeks ago, and I'm getting a ride back to the airport from my Uber driver who's from Nigeria. And I don't know if you know, but right now there's essentially almost a civil war going on in Nigeria. That man's wife is there, his two children are there. He doesn't know if he'll ever see them again. And actually just to be born anywhere in the 50 states, what a blessing we have. And yet, like, I didn't pick where I was born. That was my parents. And so, and yet we think we have all these rights because of stuff. So what if the golden rule, what if we really could live more by that? And what if we could start to be more empathetic and even sympathetic and really put ourselves in the place of other people? And I'm not, this isn't political. This is heartfelt. When we say illegal aliens, I don't think I don't know that those words go together. And like, if I'm born somewhere, because that's just where I'm born, please don't call me that. I'm probably a daughter, a son, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. No matter where we're born, if we have family, we're way, way more alike than different. So Marcus, thanks for that reminder and thanks for that nudge. And no matter how bad we got it, boy, I'll tell you what, Americans have it pretty darn well. Like, I grew up, I guess, a welfare kid. I've worked all my life, but felt weird at times from just wearing clothes and hand-me-downs of farmers when I was a little kid. But you know what? There's people in other countries in the world who wouldn't have felt bad about it at all. They would have felt blessed to have those things. So thanks for that perspective changer. By the way, you guys are awesome. And I want a photo of that. Deb, can you capture a photo of that? Of gratitude and balance and kindness. What else is on your minds, folks?
We had one more question. It said there's several books out there called Grit. Can you provide the authors' names and please? And we had some responses in the chat. Jackie shared Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. And if you have any other suggestions, it sounds like they'd be interested.
Yeah, so Angela Duckworth, she's the main author. She's actually a psychologist. And so she's the one you're going to find. What's nice with her work, you're going to find tons of, if you want it, but it's evidence-based and it's research that backs it up, and then powerful stories. But she's the one who came up with that definition of passion plus perseverance. And yeah, and so that all falls under that realm of resilience too. So resilience, grit, but so grit to me is in that family of resilience, the ability to bounce back. I have a thought I want to share just real quick. Oftentimes people will talk about how people get underneath their skin. We all have those people. I think of all the things I talk about in life, that's probably one of the toughest things for people to deal with. How do you handle those people that just get under your skin? And these words are easy to say, they're harder to live. But by the way, raise your hand or put in reactions, your hand up if you have certain types of people that just drive you crazy in like seconds. So you can go from bliss to pissed off in seconds, right? Excuse my language. So guess what, you guys? It's never about the other person. It's always about ourselves. So I was at the Worlds of Fun and I ran into my son's 5th grade teacher back in the day. And she said this, we're having a conversation about this very topic. She said, as people, we have to be smarter than a fish. Don't take the bait. Don't take the hook. Don't take the bait. It's about the other person. Because this is what happens. So if we do that, it comes nighttime, we're not sleeping, we're tossing and turning, and they're probably in their home sleeping like a baby. Another phrase is don't drink that poison. So we have to know what's about us and what's about other people. And it's so important in order to be a good leader. We also have to have healthy boundaries and sort out what's about us and what's about other people. Rachel, any other thoughts or comments or anything else that anybody shared that you just want to give a shout out to and from the chat?
Last comment was another book recommendation of Fortitude by Dan Crenshaw. And one last question, suggestions for self-care, because this year was tiring.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll end on that because I'm aware of the time. So those that know me, and this has been reinforced through conversations with many of you that are on here today. take that self-care quiz right now. Are you better at caring for others or caring for yourself? Almost always every hand goes up that says that you're better for caring for others. I promise you, you got it backwards. Until you get that one figured out, nothing, listen to this, nothing changes till you do. Self-care is fundamental to having a successful life and impactful life. It's not selfish, it's sustainable. If your cup's empty, you can't give to other people. This is fill your cup. So hopefully don't make this a one-time event in your life, but self-care, it's got to be a priority. It's not selfish. It's okay to disappoint people. I'm going to encourage you to say no to people and start saying yes to you, because when Edith Brown did that, when she would fill her own tank, her own cup, she could give and give and give and always had plenty to give. So change the way that you look at that, change the way that you think about that, begin to say no, quit saying yes to things that don't fit for you, watch your happiness skyrocket. And then with self-care, different things work for different people. Find that stuff that works for you. Most of us know what it is, but we don't get around to it. Put that on the top of your to-do list for a week, for a month, and watch what happens to your level of happiness and joy. So in closing, I just want to say this. Thank you to each and every one of you for being who you are. Thank you for showing up in the lives of others. Continue to take good care of yourself. Put these 5 pillars into place. And I have no doubt that this won't be a year of surviving for you, but this will be a year for thriving for you, and that you can also model that to other people, continue to impact people, influence people. And thanks for all that you do and all that you are. Thank you so much. Great hanging out with you. And I can't wait to do it in person.
Thanks, Dr. Tim. And I know that I am sharing from everyone on the chat group that they are so appreciative of all the words that you shared. And I know I found inspiration, I hope you did too, about how to move from surviving to thriving. And if you are new to Leadership Northwest and you'd like to get more of Dr. Tim and you're interested in becoming a part of Leadership Northwest Missouri's class of 2022, I really encourage you to check out our website at leadershipnorthwestmissouri.org. Applications for that next class will be available in late August of this year. And Leadership Northwest Missouri is solely supported by class tuition, grants, and generous donations from people like you. And if today's session helped fill your cup, I humbly ask you to consider making a donation to the organization so we can continue to support leadership in our region for years to come. If that's something you're interested in doing, a link to our donations page can also be found on the website at leadershipnorthwestmissouri.org. And thank you for consideration, and thank you so much for being a part of today's program. And again, thanks, Dr. Tim, for everything that you do for us.
May you all be blessed, and may you be a blessing to others. Thanks.